Welcome everyone to this new episode. Today I do have the pleasure to welcome David Carson. He's the CEO at Power Drive Mobility. David, warm welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, very, very excited, David, to have you on this podcast today. You have a pretty you've been through a lot of things, and the design. You have a pretty good, really understanding about how to take an idea within the medical device space to prototype that and to grow the company. So based by the different activity that you've been experiencing. So I'm very very curious, and I want to start with if you can share a little bit more about your background. Just a quick overview of your background.
About my background.
Yes, absolutely. A
Yeah.
quick overview of your background.
Okay. Yes, I lost you there for a sec. So I grew up a son of a tool and die maker. My dad was a master machinist, and we had a small business that we ran out of our house up in New York. So I grew up in that environment, and I really grew up respecting my dad's ability to basically make anything he put his mind to. He also worked in aerospace during the day, so he had a very good understanding of very advanced mechanics and that kind of thing. But I soon realized that I didn't want to get my fingers chopped off in a machine shop as as I entered my teens and got distracted by girls and cars and that kind of thing. But as I grew up, I just got a tech school degree. I just went to a tech school. I'm not much for sitting around. I'm a kind of a doer. And pretty soon found myself drafting for some large corporations. Mack Trucks was the first company I worked for. Worked on brake systems for them. And then I progressed into design positions. My employers seemed to think I was responsible enough and I could handle design and responsibility. And if, I wasn't afraid to get yelled at if I screwed up, I just, try to improve myself along the way. Soon, what was interesting, with the family business, I understood a bit about entrepreneurial aspects as well, because we were professionals getting paid to make parts, and I was always amazed at, what do these parts do? Who's drawing these parts? Who's engineering, and what do they do? So I was very fascinated by, being the person on the other side of the prints. So that kind of drew me into the drafting field. So I progressed through various some various jobs, and I always kind of reached a boundary that I couldn't overcome working for others. So I started my own business in the late 90s. I started my first company called Drafting Designs. And I moved to Stuart, Florida. I moved to Florida to just kind of live my life in a little warmer environment. And I figured I was looking forward to many years of working and working, that at least if I pop my head out the door, I'd be in a kind of a vacation scenario in between the work, right? So that's kind of still playing out. Yeah.
And how did you? Such an interesting, experience and follow your life. How? At what point in time did you ended up to be involved with medical device development, and how that happened?
Well, as I progressed into my that drafting company, I had started out doing residential design because I could. I had experienced a prior experience with one of my employers doing commercial electrical, HVAC, all the backfill for commercial buildings. So I learned all the drafting skills, and we got into CAD at that point. So that was very exciting. We got into, from hand drafting into the CAD modeling. And then as I became more, just as time passed, I got, my passion was more mechanical because that was my background with my dad, and mechanical design and engineering. So I one day I realized if I want to, really take this to the next level as a contract designer, I need a way to create, workflow and jobs, etc., to come in. So sales and marketing, what do I do? I realized that if I solicited and became friends with patent attorneys, that I could be the next step in the process of bringing ideas into reality. So I did that for many years, and completed hundreds of projects of all kinds of different nature, all kinds of different disciplines, if you will. And but I then my business brain became a little more engaged and said, medical, especially in Florida, but medical in general is a very stable, profitable, marketable, path to choose. So I started steering all of my energies into becoming basically attractive to corporations and people, patent inventors, etc., with getting a certification in medical device development. So I took a program. We became ISO certified for medical device development, manufacturing, production. And I built a process within my company at that point, to attract the medical category, and B, to be able to process reliably medical products, understanding FDA requirements and design history, and a stable process that could be auditable and transferable to perhaps a acquiring party if a venture became to that level, if you will, if the contract turned into a startup.
What did you? What type? I'm curious. Like, what type of companies and customers do you find at the level when they are in the point where they talking with those patent attorney? Like, what kind of company did you? So it was like all large company, medium sized company, or just like some individual that have like an idea? So that was
Well,
pretty.
on the patent side, so that's basically soliciting inventors, right? So there's two avenues that I was able to travel in parallel, attract inventors, or attract corporations. So to attract the inventors in the medical category, I would solicit and build relationships with patent attorneys that specialize in patents for medical device. So patent attorneys all wear different hats, right? So I targeted those who had clients that were developing medical devices. That was one path, and the other path was the corporations. So the corporations, I'd go to trade shows and I'd set up and show my interest and my capability as a medical device development company. Rapid prototyping, I got heavily involved into the 3D CAD, and built up a staff, built up the company. And then rapid prototyping came about in the late 90s and early 2003. 2003, I bought my first 3D printer. The prices kind of got a little bit more realistic, attainable at that point. And boy, we kept that machine running and running and running. But so being able to attract the corporations, that's where the rubber kind of hit the road in some very interesting projects. I acquired a cardiac simulation contract to develop a cardiac simulator. This was one of our premier products that we've developed, and it was the first time the computers and 3D printing and specialty rim molding, that we leveraged
Mm.
3D printing to build cores and be able to mold, very, very intricate arterial geometry. And then we basically patented the world's first cardiac simulator, a beating heart simulator that was generated from human CT scan imagery. So
Mm.
that's the story. I sat at a trade show, and boom, a party came and said, "Hey, we need to build a cardiac simulator for an FDA approval for our device testing. That needs to be transparent, and you need to be able to look inside the beating heart." And their device was an implant, what was it called, an LVAD pump, a left ventricular assist device. So that contract, I kind of keep putting it all together in trying to attain a back end revenue from a contract beginning relationship. So that was
Mm.
a model that I played out, and it basically it worked, because I had already at that point realized that the contracts come and go,
Mm.
but the back end revenue is about sales, is about selling products. And so that I saw the need, that the use for that device in other applications, but the company that I was working for, the contract, they weren't interested in marketing or taking that test simulator to the next level. And so I scratched my head. I said, how can I, I'll just ask, okay. So I asked them, hey, do you mind if I patent this? And they said, yeah, go ahead. We're not interested in anything beyond you delivering this simulator to us. We just want one. So I was like, okay, this is my chance. I see a need. This product could be used in a lot of different ways. And so that sparked up another startup that I was able to arrange and maneuver, put all my life savings into that. We built several of these simulators and put it out on YouTube. And boom, University of Miami calls, says, hey, we're doing something very similar that you're doing with neurovascular studies and that kind of thing. We need a heart to pump our brain. And boom, we met, and then we spun up a little startup. We got some investors involved, and ran that for several years, built it up. And then I exited, and that continued into a larger exit thereafter. And it's now a device that is further developed, and one of the largest simulator companies on the planet is now selling them and helping people.
Wow, that's amazing. What do you what's your learning? I will say, like on the process of developing those medical device in general. Like, do you have any learnings to share with us? On the as of the type of companies, the type of outcomes, like depending on the type of products. Um, what can you share on this?
Well, the one thing that was very key was developing that process that was really tried and true and specific to medical device development, which is,
Mm.
it's evolved into basically a glorified work order system, or a template that just has all the check boxes with all the various disciplines of what is it, what's the criteria, what and it's in specific order. What testing certifications does this product need? So having a very detailed um, plan, basically, that planning process was very key to attracting medical device level corporations, and then B, finding the pain, as basic sales and marketing 101 for product development or product sales, is and value, right? So the market reacts to pain. We have to find a
Mm.
pain to have a marketable anything, service or a product. So in that instance, the example is the FDA required them to do something, build something they couldn't build. And we were able to pull that off for them, the pain point, and then dropped it into the process, and then we tested the process, and the process, allowed us to schedule things appropriately, and delegate tasks appropriately, and then deliver on basically a fixed budget, which is very challenging in product
Mm.
development world. That's really what has saved me tremendously, and that's why I'm still here today and not bankrupt. Is the process has set into it. It has financial gates that are woven into the schedules. So there's always on the client side, there's always a deliverable and a financial gate. We prove ourselves before we move to the next financial gate, but where those gates are advance funded. So if and along the way, one of the keys is the change order. Something changes. That's what kills development companies. Is they don't capture the changes that occur. Right, especially in early development, you have an idea and you go from here to here, and you're like, wait a minute, then now I see something that, we could do things a different way, or we could expand it, blah 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 blah. But if you fix your budget to this deliverable, and it changes, and you don't capture the financial impact or the schedule impact, you're doomed. You're doomed, and a lot of my comrades, unfortunately, fall into that. And so I that disciplined plan is what's really been able to keep me moving here, and keep me moving in the uphill, trajectory.
Did you help your customers with the compliance as well to get the approval with the FDA? How did you do with this process? Like, did you have like a quality consultant that you were bringing inside your team and help you with the process, or how was that
That
working?
particular project, that corporation had their own staff.
Okay.
They were a well funded, a very established corporation. But as things progress now, this is kind of the story of my whole professional career.
Mm.
Each milestone, each project then builds on to the next.
Mm.
So people saw what we did there, and then more people came with other ideas. So then, yes, and then some further projects down the road evolved into where we were handling all of the certifications and compliance, and doing handling the third party testing firsthand. So that was, again, another learning experience. So that then built on to the next projects that we had the capabilities to accomplish.
Did you have to correct, I would say, like the vision often from founders or inventors of those products? Because they, for example, they had the ideas, they know what is the pain of the customers, but the product wasn't viable, or you had to do significant improvements in that sense.
All the time, all the
Yeah.
time. Mm-hmm.
What's the main issues that people don't think often when trying to build like the product, from having an idea to having like an actual like product that can be manufactured, the right way and certified.
Oh yeah, you kind of set the stage right there. The first thing that comes to mind is the manufacturability.
Mm.
uh, and with my background and the amazing people I surround myself with experience in manufacturing, that's something that many inventors just don't have much of an idea. Most don't. Some do. Some inventors do come from a manufacturing background, but many don't. So that's
Mm.
one thing. And then, but way beyond that is the marketability of it. Is the
Mm.
pain worth investing in it? Is it going to be a successful venture? Is this development capital going to turn into revenue, and and when and how much, and is it going to offset, is there going to be a profitable business here? So again, as I progressed through my career here, I began to realize the super significance to that. And
Mm,
I began to study up and surround myself again with smart business people, accomplished business people, entrepreneurs as well. I began to offer business planning and market analysis. I mean, that's the first thing to do, and many inventors would overlook that. And even to this day, when if there's a new prospect client, I'm like, did you do any market research? Oh yeah, I asked my family and friends. This is the novice, this isn't the professional or the corporate level inventor, but many, which are, there's a lot of, people writing patents and the novice level. So I'm very, very firm about that now. We need to know you're going to get your money back, and how much and when, and is this a marketable product? So my process, as you said, we modified it, changed it, always improving it. One of the mantras with a management system is that it constantly
mm,
improves. So I really have taken that to heart. So basically,
mm,
at the end of each product, we'd audit and say what went right and what went wrong. And so
mm,
over that, we identify, okay, well, we built and delivered container loads of product, and they didn't sell. That's my nightmare. That's an inventor's nightmare. And
mm,
what do we do to avoid that? Well, we start a little smaller. We do sample groups, we do focus groups, we do concept work or early on, and quantify
mm,
that the market is there, and that they will part with their hard-earned money to solve a pain that is ideally, not ideally, but from a business perspective, ideally a big pain that many people have. Therefore, they'd appreciate the product that's offered.
do you what's the process? Do you typically like advise to get like the market analysis like before or after applying and having like the IP register for the science or the key elements?
Well, that's a great question, because you really need to weave that in, because you can't disclose to the world what you're working on to get the market feedback unless you have some protection, right? So we take typically that provisional patent window, which is 1 year from a filing,
Mm,
is the opportune time to do all that. So if things look good, we do our early market study. Yes, this looks viable. That's one first step. Okay, yes, let's get you filed. Let's do some drawings. So that's usually in an alpha stage. So working through
mm,
the stages: alpha, beta, pre-production, and production. Those are the stages of our process, and very typical to industry process. In that
mm,
alpha phase, it's like working with soft clay, and you can do a lot of changes. You're not into a fully engineered design. Things are still fluid. You're in 3D. I often just literally start with clay on widgets and things like that, and then do a filing, get some drawings good enough to that identify and have the product defined. That's the first step, is define the product, right? That's so I and that's the first definition, is the first step of the process. So that definition, along with some early drawings, is enough for a provisional patent filing. And then
mm,
how that works is then you have a year to do a formal filing. So within that year, you have enough protection to let the cat out of the bag, if you will, to invite market analysis study groups and other people and share your idea. And then you have that year to listen to them, and integrate what you've learned from them into the product, into that, even that alpha phase is the ideal time again to do all that. And then at the end of alpha phase, you build a few and get them out there and test them. And then again, ask that market and do physical testing, make sure it works well, but ask that market, okay, is this on track with what you would buy? Is this going to solve the pain? Is there any improvements we could do? And then there concludes alpha phase and begins beta phase, which is a very exciting phase. That's where or you just bail out at that point. You say, no, it's not there. 90% of your audience here, your test group says bad idea, very complicated, very expensive to make. You're gonna have no profit. We also get like an early production cost, say, in that alpha phase, and then go or no go. So each phase has a go or no go. And if it's looking good, then you expand. You take that information that you learned from the market and sprinkle that into your refinements, into that beta phase, and then you magnify it. Then you can justify funding and tune up the design, and then go through a very similar process, but there's usually less development cost in that phase because there's just kind of tweaking at that point. But there's usually more production or prototype expenses because now we want to build a dozen or a couple dozen of them at the end for testing and validation and all of that. So that's the beta phase, and a lot of other things happen in beta phase. You have to the whole sales and marketing aspect has to happen. The branding, the website. You need your marketing plan now. You need to think of all of those things, and those are things we plug into our process as well. They're basically bullet points and check marks that have a list of tasks that need to be accomplished to reliably then get to the next one. You got packaging you have to consider, and all of those. There's a lot to it, obviously, but yeah. And if there's software, right? We have some. There's mechanical, electronics, and software. Some products are just mechanical, simple widget, and then some with electronics, obviously, and then some have software. So kind of same process, just more check boxes to deal with.
Oh, and yeah, it's amazing to be in this position where you had you saw a lot of different projects, you saw a lot of different founders, different companies, different type of device in general, and you were in the right position to accumulate that learning in terms of what is typically like going wrong on product development or just like the growth of a medical device, and how can we make like the process better. And I think that's great to share this story because like I think like there is always like a lot of people which are less experienced or doing that for the first time that need to go through the whole process, and this feedback is extremely useful. So I want to dive like a little bit more about your company. I'm very interesting to understand like how did you transition, I would say, or I know that you're not fully transition, but at least like how did you how that idea, if you can describe like the company, the idea, the vision, and what happened, how did you find that idea?
Well, I was again realized that the medical market, the main category is where I feel good in working in, and I actually in 2008 there was a bit of a recession, right? The housing market in the U.S. I'm not sure if you were here yet, but it was very significant financial downtime. And I had actually been working on that simulator at the time. So I was all focused on building this one one product out, and before I knew it, my workflow. I took my eyes off the sales and marketing of just more development work. We had been investing a lot of capital in this, and then I looked, and there was no other workflow coming in because I took my eyes off marketing new projects at that point, and so we struggled financially at that point, about 2009, 2010. And I realized I did some deeper research into recession-proof categories, market categories. So I was like, what can I do to protect myself if and when this happens again, or just from a a logical investment perspective of time and energy of where should I focus. So what came up on my radar was durable medical products and wheelchairs and the like that help people with mobility issues, especially in concert or in parallel with the baby booming population, right? That's why the medical category is one of the reasons the medical category is very strong. Plus, people will pay anything to maintain their health, right? So there's that aspect as well. And plus, I like helping people. I really get a lot of satisfaction out of just being in this space instead of building guns and bombs or something else. You're right. Years later, and as more contract work kind of wore me out, working with some not more novice inventors that I just can't, they will fund me, but when the contract's gone again, you get my frustration. They're not listening. They won't do the market research. I'm like, so I was always kind of looking for something in this space, and lo and behold, one day it was in 2019, a woman came with a pain, literally a pain. She destroyed her shoulder, pushing and pulling her husband, who is 100 pounds heavier than her, around in a transport wheelchair. Her husband, the gentleman, had some Parkinson's and Parkinson's dementia, I guess, setting in. So he couldn't operate a powered wheelchair. He couldn't operate a manual wheelchair. So she was the motor pushing him in a non-powered transport chair. Why? Because nobody has built a powered transport chair yet at that time. And that was like one of those light bulbs that, wait a second, they have wheelchairs that you push that the person in the chair can power with the big wheels, or the person in the wheelchair can drive with a joystick. But there's nothing on the market that helps the caregiver have powered mobility for a loved one or a patient, to take them on errands and out on outings and just get them out, right? Get them out and about. So this lady was injured, and interestingly, she came, and a great lady, by the way, and I, we clicked right away. But she had also been working for 1 year prior on this with one of my associates. And when she walked in, she not only had the pain, which was, as we learned, as we did our market study, learned that there is a huge market for this. She's not the only one that's been injured in this fashion. But she also had an alpha prototype that one of my associates built, electronics working, motor working, and etc. And a patent filed and a corporation filed. And she basically said, here, I understand you've been looking for something like this to sink your teeth into, and we'd like you to drive it the rest of the way, all the way for us. So I took on the CEO position of the company now, Power Drive Mobility. And you look behind me, what's interesting about this product is it has a detachable power module, which is something
Mm.
new to the space. So the biggest problem is the weight of these wheelchairs when they have motors attached to them. And then you add batteries, which previous to perhaps 5 years ago, and still currently, many of them still use lead acid batteries to
Mm.
power them, right? Which are like lead, right? So they have motors attached to the frames, they have lead batteries on them, and then people aren't throwing them in the trunk of their car and going anywhere with them. They're really confined to a home space, or where they can get to out their garage door, or they have to modify their vehicle with a ramp or a
Mm.
lift or that kind of thing. This one really checked all the boxes for me, and allowed me. It was the right people too. So this woman, the inventor, was not. She was willing to listen. She was willing to say, you got this now. I'm not going to interfere, or because a lot of inventors are like, it's all their passion,
It's
and
my
it's
idea.
their
Yeah.
baby. Don't. And then she said, you go, you do your thing. And I was like, okay. And so green light. First thing we did, market research, a bunch of it. And we got our numbers, and our numbers were very, very solid. Very, any investor, any business person looks at these numbers, are like, wow. And we try to stay conservative with that. But then we developed that. So that's from 2019 till now. And we're right now, we're at pre-production stage of this. So we've gone through all of those steps that are built into the process, and it worked, and they worked very well. Just to get us to where
Mm.
we are, we've already gone through a tremendous amount of safety testing for FDA certification, etc. But I really had a chance to really test that process fully on this project, and it's a very strong market, and I'm very excited about it. So I've steered away from the contract work for the time being, and I've been focused on this project for 5 years now, pretty much exclusively.
No, that's amazing. I have a lot of follow-up question on the first on the product itself. The detachable element that you have, is that like the only the battery, or does the motor is inside as well?
The motors inside, and we were able to do something. We have a lot of IP around it too. We did a couple things that a lot of other people in the space are not doing. We were able to use one motor to power
Mm.
two wheels, because we put
Mm.
what's called a differential, kind of a transmission system in the unit, and that allows the
Mm.
caregiver to really steer it like they're steering it. They just kind of, you point it in direction, and you squeeze the little trigger, and it goes in the direction you steer it. Whereas
Mm.
some of the other companies are now realizing this caregiver need, and their solution is taking the joystick that the rider usually has and sticking it on the back, so the caregiver can now have the joystick. And that doesn't work very
Mm.
well. That just causes a lot of frustration. The caregivers are like, this robot steering just doesn't feel natural, and is very frustrating for them, and they have problems. They can't steer it straight or the right direction very easily. And so the batteries are attached to this, and one of my little I guess strengths, my dad was a tool and die maker, so I learned about plastics and injection molding, and I try to do everything with molded plastic if I can, as far as fastening and springy and snappy kind of thing. So what we've done
Mm.
here, and again, listening to the market at every step here, we actually back up a little bit. We engaged a large caregiver, a national caregiver group, and I attended events on basically like a quarterly basis along the process of development here. And I would hand out surveys, and the surveys would have questions on the design, the criteria, what the people wanted, what they thought about what we were doing. And simple and one-handed, that was all part of it. And the weight was a huge issue with people. They don't want no one
Mm.
People don't want to lift more than 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So
So
we were
that's
like, okay,
like
that's our
okay. That's
target. So
Yeah, that was one of my question. Like I was curious about that. Like, yeah, you limited with the weight of what people can actually lift, actually, because it needs to be convenient
Right.
with everyone. Yeah.
Right, and the lighter it can be, the more people can use it. The more weaker or frail people, can use it. So we were with the single motor in there. We were able to reduce the weight significantly from having two motors. But then the detachment aspect splits the
Mm.
weight in half, which is interesting. So to your point, the batteries. This has two batteries at one hand. You pull them out; they're about 2 pounds now.
Mm.
Because of battery technology now, the newer battery technology, we have lithium polymer, which is
Mm.
much safer than the earlier lithium ion batteries that you heard stories about them, igniting
Yeah,
and that
in the
kind of things
plane.
on these little scooter
Mm.
boards and stuff. This is a next generation, and they're lighter. They're for the power you get out of these batteries now. Again, only about 5 years of availability now. We have those in there, so each battery is only 2 pounds, but it run this thing for about 6 hours, and 6 hours equates to about 12 miles. So two batteries, this thing in theory, I haven't tested the full marathon distance yet, but in theory, with the math and this, it's about a 24-mile range with the two batteries in here. And
Which
it's only
is
16 pounds, 16 or 18 pounds. Two batteries is 18 with that module, you see. 18 with two batteries, 16 with one battery. And if you want to get it even lighter, you just take all the batteries out, and then you can lift this. It's only 14 pounds. And we'll get that even lighter as we refine it for this production phase now.
so you say like currently like your pre-production. What about the FDA approval? Did you get it? So what's the process on this?
So we got as far as we could get without having production level units. So we're about 90% through all of the significant safety, performance, static, dynamic testing, and there's a special organization that basically polices and enforces these types of products, mobility products. It's called RESNA, RESNA, and that's an international organization that has safety standards for mobility products. So I was able to work very closely with the owner of one of these test labs, and he's also one of the authors of the standards. So I got
Mm.
very good education. I've been up there 3 times now, and each time, I learned a lot. We improved, learned a lot, got more of the check boxes checked off for the safety and performance. And now we have to build some that are production level materials, production level, all buttoned up, and do some final testing. And then we'll be in position for full FDA approval and insurance reimbursement in the U.S. and that kind of thing.
Well, that's what. So what's the growth strategy? How do you envision like to? I mean, first commercialize the product and go. What's the vision?
So great question. So that's where we get into the sales and marketing strategy, right? So what I've done is with my brain and with my processes, I've built this little compartmentalized flow chart that keep my keeping my thinking straight. So now we're talking about the sales and marketing strategy. So that is that again has evolved. So we started out, and then this went into our investor packs and everything, and investor presentations. We started out wanting to start a little smaller. I'm in Florida, so we were planning to do a smaller launch, a little more conservative. Build a container. A container will fit like 500 of these, and do a kind of a soft launch, make sure everything's working well, and then ramp up the next year to perhaps 4 times that. But then in the meantime, we've engaged a global manufacturing and just distribution company that has taken very strong interest. And we believe that with this relationship, we can accelerate to our year 3 projection, which is over $100 million in revenue, or double that within the first year of 2025 if we stay on the path, the trajectory we're on right now. That relationship will give us global, a very well-established company that's already in the business since 1980 to 88 or something. And they have a supply chain to 60 countries. They're here. They sell in the U.S. They manufacture for some of the larger brands in the world, and they've offered us the opportunity to manufacture, distribute. They want to put it under their brand, and they want to do the whole product line at one time. Which this expands to 4 initial products with the variations. We have one with the larger wheels that can be pushed. You put this in neutral and you can still push it, or the rider can with the larger wheels. So this is 4 products to launch on our first swoop. And we're going to use the sizing that is the most common, which is a 19-inch width. That sells to about 80% of the market. 80% use this width product currently, and then the next year or two we'll come out with a wider, more of a bariatric, larger version to get that last 20%. But this has gotten extremely exciting for me, especially with the horsepower of a large corporation and a sales force as well. So there's an established sales force, established support team, and then the manufacturing that can scale rapidly to the market need.
What type of agreements do you set up with those kind of company? Do they participate in the equity, or it's more like a revenue sharing agreement that's they typically interested in?
This is more of a revenue sharing. So there's 2 companies that are affiliated. There's actually 3 companies affiliated. And they're out of Taiwan, which is also a good thing because they're a U.S. trade partner. So our government contracts and that kind of thing can basically go through without too much resistance now. So we have the manufacturer that again, they're affiliated, and then we have the distribution, the branded distribution company. So the way this is being the framework is in place now. We would be basically purchasing from the manufacturer, the factory, and we would be then selling to the branded company, and then they will sell under their own brand and or other brands, whatever brands they already have, and that they could sell to. We might put other brands in the mix, and then we will also buy direct and sell under our brand to primarily the market that we are most interested in growing, which is the caregiver market. But they believe we could just drop this into the existing powered market because we have a joystick controller on it as well. So, and that's a huge market, and that's been growing crazy for the last 5-10 years. That market is really accelerating very rapidly, and everyone's trying to get into it, and everyone's trying to make their chairs as light as can be. But they've overlooked the caregiver, and B, they're all using these attached motors. So I think we're going to have a very, very good competitive advantage, and very exciting return here.
Very, very, very exciting for you, David. Honestly, it's an amazing adventure. I'm very excited to get like some update as well, even on the future.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm happy to tell you all about it as we progress here. It's an interesting story, and it's interesting to share because I've learned a lot, and I really enjoy sharing, what we've done and how we've done it. That process, that's something I could share with you. You could share with some of your team or your viewers. That I'd be happy to help and pay ahead a little bit.
Any final thoughts to share, like recommendation, feedback, final thoughts that you want to share just before we leave here?
Maybe just a couple little kind of personal things that have really helped me a lot through this, because this is not easy. I mean, this is something your challenges, are significant every day. You really,
Mm.
you know, you sometimes you just want to give up sometimes, right? So I just share with people and you is, make sure you find something, and it's basically a dream, a vision, right? We have this vision of having these out there, and it can be anything, but make sure when people select their path, they see the end, and that they see that dream, or they
Mm.
see that goal, and that's what keeps you going through the rough times. See, it's all just basic personal development kind of things. Jim Rohn, one of my heroes, but and then surrounding yourself with the right people and continuing your own personal growth along the way. I self-educated most of my life here, and the more I embrace self-education, the better things go for me. So I make less mistakes along the way, right? Learn from others.
Mm. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate that you share all of that today with us. Really appreciate again that you joined the podcast.
My pleasure, Jeremy. Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing.